Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Now, if you're a fan of the NFL, then you're going to want to pay attention to this one because we've got some big news to talk about today, and it's shaking up the landscape in a pretty interesting way. We're talking about none other than Michael Gallup, the former star wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys, who has just signed with the Washington Commanders. That's right, Gallup is officially heading to the nation's capital, and I'm here to break down what this means for both the Commanders and Gallup's future in the NFL. So, let's get into it. Now, if you're a Cowboys fan, this might feel a bit like a betrayal, but if you're a Washington fan, you've got to be feeling pretty excited right now. Gallup's signing with Washington is big news, but it also has deeper implications. It's part of a larger trend we're seeing, where former Cowboys are making their way to Washington, and all of this seems to be happening under the watchful eye of Dan Quinn, the former Cowboys defensive coordinator who is now in Washington. So, is this a case of former Cowboys players just following Quinn wherever he goes, or is there something bigger happening here? Let's break it all down. The Washington Commanders officially announced that Michael Gallup had signed with them on Thursday. Now, we don't know the exact terms of the deal, but the fact that this move has gone through tells us a lot. Gallup, who is still relatively young at 29 years old, was released by the Cowboys last offseason and had initially signed a one-year deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. However, Gallup had a change of heart just a few months later in July 2024 and chose to retire. Fast forward to today, and here we are. Michael Gallup is back in the league, and he's now a part of the Washington Commanders. So why is this significant? Well, for one, Gallup had a pretty solid career with the Cowboys before he retired. He was drafted in the third round of the 2018 NFL Draft by Dallas out of Colorado State, and he quickly became one of the top receiving threats for the Cowboys. His combination of size, speed, and route-running ability made him a perfect complement to guys like Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. During his first few seasons in Dallas, Gallup showed a lot of promise, turning into one of the more reliable and dangerous wide receivers in the NFC. In fact, it didn't take long for Gallup to establish himself as a key part of the Cowboys' offense. He had over 1,000 receiving yards in 2019 and became one of Dak Prescott's go-to targets. His ability to stretch the field with deep routes made him a huge threat to opposing defenses, and he was consistently a focal point of the Cowboys' passing attack. Over the years, Gallup amassed 266 career catches for 3,744 yards and 21 touchdowns, putting him on track to be one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. But despite his success, things started to take a turn in the later stages of his Cowboys career. In 2022, Gallup signed a 5-year, $62.5 million contract extension with the Cowboys, which was a huge deal. At the time, it seemed like a sign that the Cowboys were all in on Gallup as a top receiver for years to come. However, things didn't quite go as planned. Gallup's performance dropped in 2023, as he finished with just 34 catches for 418 yards and 2 touchdowns. Considering his contract and the high expectations placed on him, that production was underwhelming. So what happened? Well, one of the biggest factors in Gallup's struggles was his recovery from a torn ACL. The injury occurred during the 2021 season, and it took time for Gallup to get back to full strength. Coming off a major injury like that, especially for a wide receiver whose game relies heavily on quickness, burst, and explosiveness, is no easy feat. It's clear that Gallup wasn't quite the same player after the injury, and while he showed flashes of his former self, he just wasn't able to put up the kind of numbers that were expected of him. After the 2023 season, the Cowboys made the decision to part ways with Gallup. This move allowed him to test the waters in free agency. However, just a few months later, in the spring of 2024, Gallup made a surprising move by signing a one-year deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. For a lot of people, this felt like a fresh start for Gallup, a chance to prove that he still had what it takes to be a contributor in the NFL. But in an even more unexpected twist, Gallup decided to retire in July 2024, just a few months after signing with the Raiders. Why did Gallup retire so early in his career? That's a question we don't have all the answers to, but it's possible that the injuries took a toll on him, both physically and mentally. Recovering from an ACL injury is a long process, and sometimes players don't feel the same way about the game after going through that kind of rehab. There's also the possibility that Gallup simply didn't feel like he had the fire anymore. Either way, his retirement raised eyebrows because, at just 29 years old, he had plenty of football left in him. But, as you know, the NFL is a place full of second chances, and it seems like Gallup has gotten one more shot to prove himself. This time, he's heading to Washington. The Commanders have been making moves to improve their roster, and bringing in Gallup adds a new layer to their receiving group. The team has been working to build around quarterback Sam Howell, and Gallup's presence could give them a solid veteran presence on the field. Gallup isn't just a body, he brings experience, leadership, and the potential to be a game-changer if he can regain his previous form. So, what does Gallup bring to the table for Washington? For one, he adds depth to a position that the Commanders have been trying to bolster for a while now. Washington has some promising young receivers, but they've lacked a true number one option in the passing game. Gallup could potentially fill that role if he's able to get back to playing at a high level. His ability to stretch the field and make plays downfield would complement Washington's current offensive scheme, and with Howell developing as their quarterback, having a reliable target like Gallup could work wonders for the Commanders' passing attack. Another factor to consider is the dynamics of Washington's offensive system. The Commanders have made moves to revamp their offensive line and strengthen their run game in recent years, and bringing in Gallup is part of that overall plan to create a more balanced and potent offense. With the emergence of Howell as a potential long-term starter, the team will be looking for ways to take pressure off him and give him more weapons to work with. Gallup's experience could make him a steady hand in Washington's offense, and if he can stay healthy, he'll be a player to watch in 2025. But this move also has bigger implications for Gallup personally. A lot of eyes will be on him to see if he can bounce back from his injuries and reclaim his spot as one of the league's top wide receivers. He's still got a lot of potential, and Washington's move to sign him is a signal that they believe in his ability to return to form. There's something special about watching a player come back from adversity, and Gallup's story could be one of redemption if he's able to prove his doubters wrong and return to his old self. For Washington, this move is a gamble, but it's one that could pay off in a big way. If Gallup can regain his explosiveness, the Commanders could have one of the most dynamic receiving corps in the NFC. And if Gallup doesn't work out, they haven't committed to a long-term deal, so they can move on without too much of a financial burden. It's a win-win scenario for the team. Either they get a key contributor, or they get some valuable depth. Now, let's take a step back and look at the larger picture here. This move is part of a growing trend of former Cowboys players finding their way to Washington. Under Dan Quinn, who was the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, we've seen several familiar faces make the jump to the Commanders. Quinn's connections to these players and his reputation as a coach they trust are definitely a big part of why this is happening. Players like Gallup, who had a strong relationship with Quinn in Dallas, are likely more inclined to follow him to Washington, knowing that he'll have their backs and understands their strengths and weaknesses. For Dan Quinn, this is an opportunity to build a defense that's not only talented but also knows how to work together. And for the players, it's a chance to play for a coach who knows how to get the best out of them, which can be incredibly valuable in the NFL. So, what's next for Michael Gallup? It's all about proving he can return to form and help Washington take the next step as a team. Whether he'll be able to turn back the clock and show he's still the explosive playmaker he was in his early years with Dallas remains to be seen. But for now, The move to Washington gives Gallup a second chance to rewrite his NFL story, and fans of the Commanders will be hoping he can be the playmaking receiver they've been looking for. What do you think, though? Do you believe Gallup can make a successful comeback with the Washington Commanders? Or do you think his best days are behind him? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future NFL updates and breakdowns. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.